everyone, and welcome to today's session. We will be going through the roles of a Scrum Master. Before now, I guess you all have an idea of what Agile is all about. You've had training on that. You've also had a bit of training on the Scrum as a whole. So now today we just want to give you an idea or train you more, give you a better understanding on what the roles of Scrum team are, what the roles are in Scrum team and what they actually do. Okay. So today we'll be talking about the roles and responsibilities of a Scrum team. So we'll be talking about the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers as we go along. Every one of them is very important in a team that I'd like you to know. So what the topic will cover today is the Scrum roles, the responsibilities, and then if you guys have any questions on the training or any other thing after that, then we can go through that as well. So for today, the three main Scrum team roles are the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers. And you all know that I think by now you should all have met or interacted with your product owner, or your BAs should have interacted with them. So the product owner is basically the one who has the vision of what the business requires. So he understands the requirements and he brings it to the team for them to work on. So he's the spokesperson for the team. Okay. Then you have the Scrum Master, which are yourselves, and you guys are meant to be our facilitators. You're meant to be the agile prophets, the agile coaches. So you should understand what agile is all about, understand what the Scrum rules, their values, the principles that are all attached, because you're there to ensure that the whole team is actually following the process. Okay. And then we have the developers. The Scrum Guide before 2020 used to call the developers the development team, but it was changed to developers now. So it's no longer regarded as the development team, but more developers. And it's consists of the skills, the various skills that is actually needed. So the people that will be working, that are the developers, are the ones that will actually work on the product to actually give us our sprint goals towards making the project at the end. Okay, so the developers for your team that you are aware of now, you know of the QA, you know of the BA. Okay, with the Scrum Guide, the developers consist of, it could be writers, it could be designers. So there are other roles that can make up the developers, which you might not be aware of now, which is why I'm stating this, because for the project you're working on now, you have just QAs and BAs, as well as the PO for your Scrum team. So with the developers, there are other roles that could be the software architect, it could be engineers, it could be data engineers. So there are other roles that actually make up developers depending on the project you're working on. So the project actually determines the skill sets that you work on, especially in each sprint, and you'll get to know that as you go along, because while working on various projects, you have to have the right skill sets to be able to meet your goals for that particular sprint. So you can start with a particular set of developers, but depending on what you're working on that sprint, you might need somebody else to come in. So for instance, let's say you're on a data migration project right now. Right now, none of your team has got a data engineer or a data architect. So that could also come in if you're working on such projects to add to your team. Okay. So a product owner is someone who's the one who's responsible for the product vision. Okay. So with the product owner, you have to, he is the one that collaborates with the team on behalf of the business. So he gets the requirements, he gets to understand what their vision is, what they want built or developed, and then based on that, he goes to get his own knowledge, makes research about it. He has to be very knowledgeable about what the business wants. So he's accountable for actually maximizing the value of work. So he's constantly checking on the various phases of development. Okay. So his responsibilities are he defines the product vision, like I said. So by defining the product vision, he is the one who actually understands the product from the business perspective. So he keeps the product in line with the business goals. Okay, so he creates a product map that he's able to use as a checklist towards how the product is being developed and also released. So he meets up regularly with the stakeholders to be able to understand what they actually want, to be able to accommodate whatever change they might need. He has to know the product like the back of his hand, okay, for him to be able to relate that back to the team. So after doing that, he's able to now, based on the requirements that the business needs, he prioritizes the backlog, okay? So he juggles the scope, the budget, the time of the project. And with that, is able to now prioritize his backlog in the sense that they meet the business requirements as they go along. So he considers the needs and the objectives of the stakeholders while he's doing that. Okay. So collaboration with stakeholders, like I said, mentioned earlier, he's constantly in communication with them, giving feedback on what is happening, getting more information from them towards what they might require, what they need, and then he's now able to give that back to the team. So he kind of liaises his back and forth within the team in terms of getting out, helping them achieve their goals to meet the project. So he also sets the priorities of the business, the priorities for the needs of the team as well. So he takes into consideration all that is needed to actually meet the project's goals. So for instance, let's say the business now, let's take one of the projects, the projects you're working on now. Let's say your PO comes on to you now and tells you the business. I believe this week most of you are doing your web, your landing page, okay? And the business could come. I think most of you are doing your header. I'm not sure about the footer. I'm just trying to give you an example now. So if the business now comes and says to the PO, okay, actually we would like to have a bit of the footer in this sprint. Okay, so he's able to accommodate that and now come and set the priorities based on what you have on your product backlog. Okay, and say, okay, I can bring that in or not, and depending on what the team says and how you guys feel about it, if it's something you can actually work on, then you are able to determine if it goes into the sprint or not. And if it's not going to go, you can, either way, the information will be taken back to the business, and the priorities will either be reprioritized for next sprint, or if it can still be carried on, it will be carried on. So he is in charge of that, and he's also constantly monitoring the development process. So he's constantly engaged with the teams on each phase that they're on to know if it actually, if you guys are actually meeting your roadmap and also the goal for each sprint. Okay. So yeah, and he evaluates the product progress as well. So it checks to see when, by the time you're done, maybe at the end of the sprint, to see that, okay, what has been developed actually meets the definition of done. It's actually like a quality test, a UAT that he himself will do. You guys have the UAT on your board. So these the users acceptance test. So he checks to see that, okay, what has been developed is actually of good in progress. You know, the product meets the requirements of the business and it's been achieved. So that's some of the roles of the product owner. You would, for this training, I'm only going to give you some of the roles, not all. You would have to research more, and then you get to know more as you get into the field as well. So for a business analyst, they help guide businesses in, in improving processes for the business. So the business analysts work hand in hand with the product owner. Their roles are kind of like interwoven, because they get to get the requirements, they get to write the stories, they get to write the stories and that they use to populate your backlog, so which is your PBI as well. As you're saying, they've been able to meet with your POs, they've gathered the requirements, they've written stories according to what the PO wants them to actually do for each sprint. So when they do that, they're able to populate your backlog for the team to actually have something to work on. So they serve as a bridge between the developers and stakeholders and product owners as well. So some of the responsibilities that they have towards the team is gathering requirements, as I mentioned earlier. That has been able to understand exactly what the PO or the stakeholders want. They document and analyze whatever information they get, and they do their market research, so they're able to understand if what the business wants, meets the market, and also if they are able to understand, if they're able to give any other input in which they can improve the business. So they also do that as well. Then they are part of the stakeholder management. They are constantly in communication with the stakeholders as well, and the PO, so that they know that they're actually on the same page and working towards achieving their goals for the sprint. So they help the business to translate their needs and their requirements as well, like I've mentioned. They provide clarifications to the clients, regarding the development process. They help them understand how they're actually working, what the team is actually doing, and also to understand if they're able to actually carry out whatever requirements they might need. So there's a constant communication back and forth between them for them to be able to achieve that. Also, in that process, should the stakeholders want to make a change request, they are also part of the first port of call to get that and understand it and all before they bring it to the team for them to see if it's something they can do. So at the end as well, same as the PO, they're also able to conduct users acceptance tests. That's just for them to be able to see if the requirements are met, if the definition of done meets the requirements and whatever has been actually produced for that sprint, developed for that sprint, actually meets the requirements that were set. So they carry that out as well. So we come to you lots, the Scrum Masters. So you guys are basically the prophets. You are the enforcer of the Agile rules. You are the one who should understand the process, understand Scrum, understand Agile, be able to coach your team and make them achieve their goals. So you're like you're like the true leader, okay? So before now, the Scrum Guide used to address the Scrum Masters as the seventh leader, but that it's no longer used. Currently, we're seen as true leaders because I think it makes more sense, because with the seventh leader, there was a misconstruction within people thinking that, you know, you are there to actually serve them. You're not there to serve them. You're not there to pour nobody coffee or pour nobody tea. You're there to actually create an environment for them to thrive, for them to be able to meet their objectives and achieve their goal. So the main aim for you is to make your team self-organized, self-managed. Okay, so you're there to help them understand the process and be able to for them to become high performing to meet their project goals. So your responsibilities are this, but not limited to.
Sorry, could you go back to that screen quickly? So I just want to write something else quickly.
Go back to the screen.
Yeah, to that last slide. There's just one word I need to. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Is that okay?
No, it's just showing me a guy with glasses.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. No, yeah, I've got it now. Thank you.
Okay, so that'll be £20.
What currency?
So your responsibilities are, I believe you all know this one, facilitator, but we need to just expand it a little bit more because it's not just facilitating your ceremonies, you know, organizing meetings. That is not just all it's all about. It's you being able to create a collaborative environment for your team. Okay, so you should be able to allow communication flow, you know, while practicing the values of Scrum. So making sure your team is focused in whatever they are doing, you know. So it's not just you setting meetings, calling daily stand up. You're not even meant to be calling daily stand up, you know, because they're meant to be working towards being self-managed. So don't have it at the back of your head that you're just there to come and um, organize meetings. There's so much more to being a Scrum Master, okay, other than you being a facilitator as well. Like I've mentioned previously, you have to own the process. You are the authority of the process. So if anyone comes to you today and say, "Oh, it's Scrum. Why is this? Why is that? You know, why is Scrum? I should be able to change my request. Scrum, Agile, and Scrum supports that. You should be able to give them the reasons why. You should be able to tell them, make them understand why they can and why they can't. You know, why they can do that or why they can't do that. So you should be able to understand the whole process. You should be able to know why you are actually carrying out certain ceremonies. Why do you have a daily stand? What does that relate to? What empirical process is that on? So you should be able to understand every single part of your ceremonies and what value it actually brings to the team to make them high performing team, to make them able to achieve their goals. So you need to understand the process like the back of your hand. Okay, so that's something you all need to work on. We all need to work on. It's a continuous learning process. You know, agile is a mindset. So whatever we learn, it's not set in stone. Every organization is different. Every team is different. Is you being able to be flexible and work with it. So also have your shield interference. So being able to shield interference from your team. The interference could be internal, it could be external, you know, it could be high management, low management, but you'll be able to identify when it's affecting the focus of your team and being able to shield them from it, okay? So you should be able to, for example now, like I said earlier, if your PO comes today and says, okay, I want you to work on a certain feature for this sprint, and you know your team is not able to do that based on the fact that you've been able to identify either they don't have enough capacity or you feel that it's taking them away from the focus of the sprint, bearing in mind that change is also always welcome in Agile. So you should be able to listen to the stakeholders as well. But the frequency of how it comes and how they're able to accommodated should also be taken into consideration as well. So you should be vigilant, you should be understanding, you should be knowledgeable of the product your team is working on and how they're actually working on it, to be able to speak to either the product owner or the stakeholders or whoever is trying to interfere with their focus for that sprint. That's external. They could also have internal interferences amongst themselves, amongst the team, not working on what you're supposed to be working on, or not being knowledgeable about certain things. So you should be able to identify and also shield them from that and make them understand and bring their focus also back to what they're actually working on. Because remember, you should be able to, the aim of every sprint is to be able to create incremental value at the end of the sprint. So that should always also be the focus of the team as a whole. So remove blockers, and some of you have started doing that already. You were able to solve the problems, the access with your team. So those are example of blockers that you can come across as well. Other than that, there are other blockers within the team that could be happening. Could be knowledge gap. If you identify that, you're able to see, okay, what do you do in that instance? Do you pair the person or not? Do you pair the person with someone or not? If not, what do you do? How do you help bring your team back up to speed to be able for them to actually meet their sprint goal for that sprint? So let's say if you identify certain things and you're able to point them in the right direction, we encourage you to do that, because as we said, we're trying to make the team self-managed. So once they're able to identify whatever, they're able to solve the blockers themselves, it's easier for them to be able to become self-managed, because they don't have to rely on you to do anything. So you always have to encourage them to actually try and solve the issue. If they can't, then you step in to actually help them remove such blockers, whatever it might be it access or not, be it knowledge gap or not. You have to be able to identify and also help them along the way. So being that you're the Scrum Master and the process authority, pardon?
Yeah, sorry, can I ask a question regarding blockers?
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to ask if at any point in time the Scrum Master has to make tickets available for issues or for impediments.
What do you mean tickets available for issues?
I mean,
like
if there
a log? Are you talking about
yes,
an impediment log?
Taking down notes.
Yes, it's advisable to have an impediment log, because what that does for you as well is it serves as a referral. So should such impediments come up again, you should be able to, direct them to your log as well, which is advisable to be on your whatever, if you're on Jira, Confluence, if you're on Azure, Wiki, whatever information page the tool, the company you're working with is using. So it's good to have an impediment log as well.
Okay, because we've not come up across that since we've been here. So I'm just checking.
You are the one who creates the impediment log. Okay, it's the Scrum Master that creates. Yeah, you create an impediment log, or the team can do it as a group. So it's part of your information page, like I said, either your wiki or your Confluence, and anyone has access to it. So if there are such blockers that are recurring, that can happen over and over again. Maybe a new person joins the team and is also having such issues. You can actually help the person or direct the person to where the log is, and they can actually go there, see it for themselves, and see what to do next. So having an impediment log it's a good idea.
All right,
and it's encouraged to be done for everything. If not, you
maybe
keep
if you
talking
can share.
and repeating yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it will be helpful if you can just share probably a template or anything with us so that we can see like okay how it's done and
Okay, that's fine. We'll share one with you. We'll share one on the Scrum of Scrum for everyone to see.
All right.
That's okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So so carry on. You guys should be able to coach your team and coach not just the team as well. It could be the organization as well in the Agile and Scrum processes. Because once you understand it, you'll be able to identify any anti-pattern that is going on, and in that way you'll be able to address it during, by creating workshops and coaching sessions for that. Okay, so other roles, responsibilities that you would have to carry out is onboarding. So being able to identify the skill sets that your team needs is very important. So usually that is being carried out if it's a new team, identify that before the team comes in with the PO as well. So you know exactly what you need to actually be able to work on that project. So you have to understand what project you're working on to be able to identify the skill sets that will be needed for that particular project. And like I said earlier on, it could be a project that you're working on already, and maybe a particular feature that you have a new member come onto your team. You have to onboard them. So you have to let them understand what you're working on, give them all the information they need, all the access they need to be able to actually carry out their work in terms of them achieving their goals for each sprint. So onboarding is what you do as well. Having effective communication amongst yourself, amongst the team, and across as well towards your stakeholders and your PO and your the stakeholders and end users. So having effective communication is very important. Being able to express yourself and pass information across is very, very important as a team Scrum Master, as a team Scrum Master. So resolve conflicts, support the product owner, and also be able to create a team bonding session, because like I said earlier, you're there to create an environment for them to thrive. How are you able to do that? You need to be able to relate with your team in such a way that they have your trust. You need to relate with them in such a way that they understand that you've got their back. You're actually there to support them. You're kind of like leading them from behind. So you're like their cheerleader from behind as well, but you're pushing them to do well, motivating them, trying to ensure that, they do not find working on their goals stressful. So how do you do that as well? You have to encourage the team to be able to work together. Okay, so make them create team bonding sessions for them to get to know themselves as well, for them to be able to relate with themselves, for them to be able to understand themselves so that they're able to work well together. Okay, so these are some, not list of all the roles that you have to do. You have so much more to do, but your soft skills, apologize, I've gone to the next slide, but your soft skills are also very important in your role as a Scrum Master. So you need to be able to harness that to work with your team as well. So developers, like I said earlier, they used to be known as the development team, but now they are regarded as developers. So it's comprises of people that have the different expertise that would be able to actually carry out work on the project and bring it to life. So they should be able to achieve and give an incremental value at the end of each sprint. So whoever is on your team on each sprint and whatever sprint goal you're working on, they should all be able to have the skill sets to actually carry out that work. Okay. So what project you're working on now, you've got your developer. Each team has got their developer with them, and you the developer, that's your software developer. So that's one of the skill sets you need to actually bring that website to life. And you need your QA to actually test them. You need your business analyst to actually write the stories that you to bring the vision of the PO and the business to life. So you have a complete set to actually give us a functioning website. So that's your those are your developers for your project. So their responsibilities are actually, they have to be the ones to estimate their stories, because they are the ones that are actually working on the product. They are the ones who understand and know the product, know their how much effort, how much work they will need to put into it. Which is why we said the team has to be made up of expertise. They know their job, so they know their stuff. They don't need anybody to come and manage them or tell them what to do, because they are the one who is actually going to work on it. So looking at their stories, they should be able to tell how much effort they will need to work on those stories. So it's their responsibility to do the estimation. Nobody else does it for them. So it's the developers who carry out that part of your sprint planning. So they are the only ones who get to speak about it and talk, have a conversation around the story for them to actually understand what they need to do about it. So once that's done and you've committed your stories into sprints, they own the sprint backlog. So whatever stories have been put into the sprint, they are the ones who decide how they are going to work on it. So nobody goes in there to say, oh, John, you work on this. Oh, Abdi, you work on this. Nobody does that, because they know that they have the knowledge about it, how to go about it, and they are able to self-manage themselves. They understand their skill sets and what they'll need to bring to it. So they pick up the stories from the sprint backlog and work on it individually themselves. Okay. And they have the responsibility of focusing on the sprint goal. So, which is where you come in as well, by monitoring, their work in progress, by understanding that working according to how they're supposed to, with the sprint goal in mind. Okay, so making them not being, interfered with in any way, either by themselves or by management or anyone being asked to go and do something else other than what they're supposed to be working on in that sprint. So they own that. So also they're responsible for collaborating and communicating amongst themselves. And they get to do that using all the various ceremonies that you do. So during the daily stand-up, they're able to talk about what they're working on, any impediments they might have. They are able to collaborate among themselves and, to actually get the work done. They talk, have conversations over the stories before they get sprinted, both within themselves and also the PO or the BA. So for clarification of stories, for them to better understand the requirements that is needed. So they communicate and collaborate using each of the sprints, and encourage them to always be open. The Scrum values is something you should learn to coach your team on. That's why you need to create an environment for them where they can be open, they can speak freely, they are courageous, so you're able to all work together to achieve the sprint goal. Okay, so you have testing and quality assurance. So that's where your testers come in. So whatever has been worked on in that particular sprint, at the end of it has to meet the definition of done. So that's where they're able to determine if there's a bug, that needs to be worked on, then take it back to the developer that is working on it, the software developer that is working on it, or the front end or back end developer that is working on it. Before the user story will be taken to UAT, they should have all tested it. That's why they're a cross-functional team. Most of the time, a cross-functional team are able to work together because they all have an idea of what is required from each skill set. So once it's tested, they can now take it to the UAT. So it needs to meet the definition of done before they can actually pass that on. So the IT world is a ever-changing world. You don't even need to be a developer to know that. So they have to be on top of their game in terms of continuous improvement of themselves, not just them, the whole team. The whole team has to be continuously learning, amongst themselves, improving themselves, bringing other people up to speed. Should they have a team member that don't really understand a certain skill that they have, they are able to coach themselves as well and bring themselves all up to speed. So continuous learning goes across the board for everyone, but it's their responsibility to always be on top of their game and know what's new on that as well. So those are a few of the responsibilities of the developer. So just a brief summary of everything we've said. All roles operate without hierarchy in an agile team. Everyone is the same. There's no boss, there's no manager, there is no orga. Everyone is actually on the same level. You relate and respect one another on the same level. Everybody matters in an agile team and in a scrum team as well. So everyone matters. Everybody's skill set is important. So you have to learn to listen, to respect everyone in the team as well. So, like I said, the PO is a spokesperson. They manage the product backlog, monitor progress of work, ensure that whatever has been worked on meets the requirements that they have for the requirements that they have from the stakeholders. BA is also elicits requirements with the PO, the stakeholders. They conduct the market research. They ensure that whatever they've been asked on, they offer their ideas. They bring it back to the stakeholders. They also understand what they want and see if it's marketable. So they do a proper research on whatever products they're actually asked to work on, and before they write up their user stories as well. So the SMs, you have to be an agile and scrum expert. You have to coach and mentor. You're the facilitator. Encourage self-management among your team. That is the aim. You don't want your team to be reliant. You want them to be high performing, and they can do that when they know exactly what to do themselves. So you always encourage them to become self-managed, and you protect them where you can, but always encourage them to sort out the solution themselves first before you come in. So you've pointed them to the right direction. You wait for a feedback. If whatever the feedback is, you do a follow-up on it. So that's what you do with your team and with the dev. Yeah, they estimate their stories. They're all skilled expertise. They collaborate and communicate with one another, and always give a progress report all the time, and ensure that they always conduct the testing before taking to UAT, so as quality assurance actually. So that's all from me. That's all from me. So it's a brief introduction into your roles. We expect you all to also ask and do your own self-development so you get to understand more as well. Any questions? I'm only joking when I say no questions. So any questions, please?
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
You're welcome.
Just to ask with regards to the blockers, like you said, right, dealing with impediments. So,
Yeah.
for the team on our Azure board, in Wiki, we created repositories for all the
Yes.
roles. And you
Mhm.
did mention of that we also put like we also now create like another document for impediments, because what myself and my other SMs have been doing is to impute the whatever we discussed in case of impediments, we impute that into our Scrum repository. So we also create a separate document for impediments during the course of our daily, as part of the notes we put from our daily stand-ups.
Okay. So when we're talking about the impediment log, it's a log sheet that either you or the whole team have agreed to create that everyone can have access to. As long, it doesn't matter where it is, as long as your team knows where it is and they can be able to access it should they need it. Okay, so that log should be accessible to the team members because they're the ones facing the blockers, isn't it?
Okay.
So if you, yeah, and there's no particular format of how you have to write it. It's just whatever makes sense to you and your team. And you're able to identify that this actually solves the solution. Is the solution to the problem. Yeah?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, then. Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, Vivian.
Hi.
In terms of resolving conflict,
Yeah.
like say like for example, I'm a Scrum Master, there's two developers or three, they're disagreeing on something. What's the best way someone
Yeah.
should the Scrum Master should deal with that? Is it like to have a one-on-one with them or a meeting with them or in the normal Scrum mode? How does that dealt with?
Okay. Okay. I'm going to throw this back at you. So when you have three people having a conflict, what do you do?
Talk to them.
You're breaking, I can't hear you.
Have a meeting with them, like have a sit down and like a one-to-one. Again, understand.
Yes. And then what do you do after that? But good. And then what else do you do?
Basically, I don't know. That's the part I asked you. I've got an idea, but
Yeah, so you always you need to understand that as a Scrum Master, you are in such instances, in not even generally, you're fair to everyone. So you relate with everyone on the playing field, on the playing ground. You don't have no favorites, you don't show no favorites, you don't have. So you are neutral with everyone. And that's the approach you would also bring into a conflict resolution situation. So understanding where their pinpoint is for each and every one of them, you need to be able to hear all of them out first. Once you've heard them out, you get to understand what is actually by the time you listen to you have a one-to-one to all of them, you'll be able to have an idea of what is actually going on, and that is what will now determine what approach you will take as an individual to bring the teams back together. One thing you need to bear in mind is everyone is different and everyone would address a situation differently. So never be pained in how they come across to you. Like I said, you have to be neutral with each and every one of them. So once you've had the one-to-one and you understand where they're coming, then you're able to now address it. Let's say, for instance, now you mentioned three developers, and let's say from your one-to-one with them, you're able to determine that maybe it was just a miscommunication issue. Maybe that was what was bringing the whole thing in the first place. So how do you go about approaching that now? Once you realize it's a miscommunication issue, assuming.
I would explain to them, and there's been like, so for example, there's the three developers, two agree on something, the other one doesn't agree on it, and I listen to all of the side of the story and I can understand and identify it's just a miscommunication, then the developer does not agree with it, I'll just explain to him and then hopefully you should get in it.
You think so?
Now I'm a master at that. Hello? You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear. I can hear you.
Perfect.
No.
Are we still all here or?
Yeah, we're still here. What is it for?
Nice. Let me just ask, does any of us take like attendance for people that come to your stand-ups? Do you like put the attendance down in your wiki for those who come for your stand-ups, who attend your daily stand-ups?
I think that would be grassing, isn't it?
Pardon?
I think that would be grassing.
We don't take attendance. I don't. What what's oh, what's the implication of taking attendance?
Well, me, I don't. I just feel that at least that help. Well, me, I take attendance like I just like do a screen, so at least I know those who are coming, and I put in my team info so that in case anybody wants to know, oh, who came in for the last stand-ups, and then that might also help me to especially like some days I've missed some stand-ups, so at least we know those people who are around or who attended the last stand-up, and then maybe if one has to ask questions of I don't know, I'm just asking. I've been like for the meetings where I've attended, I just like put the people and I put it on I have a page, I created a page on my wiki that I tagged team info. So that's where I like just put that information of the people that who attended the day and put their title. So at least everybody knows. So in case maybe a member wants to know what was discussed in the last meeting. So and I just do that. I just want to know if I was overdue.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
What happened now? Hello?
Hello,
No.
we can hear you, Vivian.
Oh, sorry, I was logged out. I was
Oh.
logged out. Yeah, so
Oh.
I couldn't hear you. So sorry, I don't even know if you had my final response or I was just asking. I was talking to myself here and I was asking, okay, so who asked the question? And I got no response. So I don't know if you heard what I said. So who asked the question, please?
It was me, Mohammed.
For Mohammed, okay. Sorry, I don't know. Did I answer your question? I don't know if you heard the
With the three
last things I said.
You basically, yeah, I kind of
Okay.
understand a bit. But last question, yeah. If you try to resolve that conflict and it doesn't work, do you now go to the PO or
Every organization has their own escalation process. So it depends on what is in place for the organization you're working with.
Okay.
But in such instances, after trying and it's not working, then you just have to speak to the line manager and let them know what's going on.
All right. Then thank
Okay.
you. That answers my question perfect.
Does anyone have any other question? Is everybody okay?
Go on.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Someone wanted to ask a question earlier before we started.
I think it was John. I'm not sure.
Okay.
No,
Is it
I